And this is Jay Taft. Once again, welcome back. We're here with the weekly sports podcast, Not Just a Game. And this week we're going a little different. We're going to keep it visual with you as well. And so we've got some video and some audio because we have an awesome guest this week once again. We're bringing on Northern Illinois University Athletic Director and Associate Vice President Sean Frazier. Sean, thank you so much for joining me today. I know you're a busy man. Thank you, sir.
No problem, Jay. I appreciate it.
I'm
We're
hoping,
getting through it.
yes, I'm hoping you, your family, everybody healthy right now.
Yeah, we're all healthy. Just in transition mode of, the middle of the summer and the different activities, COVID-19, race relations, budget, all the great things in life.
A lot going on right now, isn't there?
Absolutely.
My goodness. Well, let's try and squeeze in as much as we can in 15 or 20 minutes here. Now, 7th year over there as the AD and Associate VP. I think in that time you've got 8 Mid-American Conference titles, 4 in football. You've helped the university and the athletic department raise a lot of money. You've continued and maybe even improved on the great academic reputation over there. So it had been a smooth, nice 7-year start. and then and then we hit mid-March. You got to walk us back and just kind of take us through that craziness that you guys went through back then.
Yeah, no, it's tough. We're still dealing with it now, and it's interesting to kind of watch it. It's more surreal, obviously, with the whole social distancing now, which is commonplace. Wearing masks, which is commonplace. But what's not commonplace is the fact that people are still dying from COVID-19. We're still seeing an uptick in the virus with no vaccine. We're still seeing a lot of lifestyle changes. So, going back to March, where we had just finished up a pretty successful men's basketball run and getting a bye to our conference championship, that's where it really hit us a lot. We knew that the virus was here and we would have to social distance, and we made a deliberate decision to have no fans at the championship site and only the players and staff. But no one really understand the impact as we got the night before the actual time that we were going to play, when the NBA made a decision to cancel all contests. That was the watershed moment, if you remember.
Yes.
And then the next day, we went into a series of meetings taking a look at and re-examining if we could keep people safe. And he ultimately made the decision to cancel the tournament. And then everything started to escalate further to that with the NCAA terminating spring sports. And then it just kept on as far as cancellation of events and different activities. So that was really, goodness, that was shocking, disturbing, emotional, all those adjectives. But it really changed the lifestyle that we know it as so-called being normal with intercollegiate athletics.
Not much you can do to prepare for something like that. I mean, you've been in the industry 20 some years, coming up on 30. I mean, there is nothing that can prepare you for what you went through these past 3 months.
Yeah, there's no question about it. There was, we're going through evaluations, and we're conducting businesses through obviously virtually and through different mediums. And I just got off an evaluation with the head coach, and we talked about the pandemic. We talked about, the racial issues that we're currently dealing with right now. We talked about what the effect of the pandemic has on the economic vitality of our industry and several industries across the country. So yeah, this is like the perfect storm. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm out at sea someplace and I'm hitting a gale force on one side. I got a major storm on the other side, and I've got to figure out how to keep on the ship and make sure the ship doesn't sink at the same time. So yeah, it's quite significant. I gotta say, when I said to the head coach, he said, if I hadn't had some of the experiences that I've had in my life, it probably would be a little different for me. Obviously, I don't have any more hair on my head, and I've been around. I'm a 52-year-old man that's seen some stuff. Nothing like a pandemic, but I've seen some stuff. and that's given me at least a good sense of my staff and the people I work with and our donors and our senior leadership to kind of get people close so we don't flinch during this time.
You've already mentioned the unrest in our country that's gone, hand in hand now with this pandemic. Give us an idea of how what you've seen over there in the DeKalb area and in the Northern Illinois University campus, that reflects what we're all hoping is going to be some change in this country.
Well, there's a couple of tracks. We can kind of go back. The COVID scenario, and then you got the social justice mandate, the emotional shift. We've had it. We've had our town of DeKalb and Sycamore that really make up the community of DeKalb County and DeKalb and NIU proper. Yeah, we've had our share of issues where businesses are shut down and they're starting through the staging process of the state, able to open up to some degree, but we've had serious economic hardship because of COVID-19. As you can imagine, people are not, getting their hair cut. They're not going out and having what I would say normal interactions you would have because of the shutdown, the shelter-in-place edict. And then we've had this race relation component where we've had multiple marches and protests, and we've had some looting, and this has been a mood swing that's been pretty incredible.
Yes.
And it's affected not just one group of people, right? It affected all of us in a very way where some of us are just afraid to leave the house, maybe because of COVID, maybe because of racial issues or social justice. But it's just from a mental health, we've seen the increase in uptick of mental health issues because of everything happening at one time.
Yeah.
And it's been a challenge as an educator, father, husband, to try to, living in the community. I've lived in both DeKalb for 4 years, and now I'm coming up in my 4th year in Sycamore. Wow. So I've been in both communities, watching this, and very heavily active, obviously, in both communities. And it's real personal. It's real personal to me on how things are happening.
Are we headed in the right direction when we're talking about the unrest and the protests for police brutality and just the equality that most of us are searching for?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm always a glass half full guy. My background, a lot of folks don't know. My brother's a police officer in Massachusetts. My father was a police officer, federal correctional officer. I have a long history of law enforcement. My wife is an attorney, a lawyer. I have a different lens. If you can imagine a black police officer, I'm an African American. Think about what a black police officer or a person of color who's a police officer right now is dealing with.
Yeah.
Think about that in the front lines. So those discussions are interesting.
Yeah.
And then with my background, with my family as a part of that, and then understanding the atrocities that have happened to Black and brown people and the track record of that brutality, and what happened up in Minnesota.
Yeah, you can't deny any of that.
Jesus, some of the stuff is, for me, it's a human rights issue as a Black man living in the United States of America. That was a human rights issue. And then people are just tired. They're fed up. And they want to come together and understand. And they want to make sure that they have equality. And at this day and age, 2020, that we're talking about this, it's just disturbing. It's really disturbing. So I think that part of us now is just now for me to be a connector of people, me to be able to give my perspective and only talk from experience, because I can only give you that. But I think I'm hoping, Jay, it's going to get better. I can't give you a definitive, yes, it's going to get better or we're in the right track. Yeah. I just got to keep my head down, talk about the issues, bring people together, look for a common ground. That's really my stick right now to help out the process.
We have to believe in each other.
Correct.
And it's just so hard sometimes. Yeah. I can't watch Twitter videos anymore. It's just disturbing.
Yeah.
And so, but we have to have faith and we have to hope. And so I think it's the belief that it's getting better and it's going to be better.
Yes.
When we're talking about that regards.
Yes.
get hit on COVID. I know you're a Long Island, New York native. I have my best friend and sister lives there. I have a lot of family up there.
Sure.
And she has gone through the ringer. And a lot of people in that region have been through the COVID ringer. Do you know of, are you close with anybody who's gone through the
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
coronavirus?
Yeah, unfortunately, my wife, both me and my wife were from New York. You know, I grew up in Queens, and then obviously half of it Queens, and obviously half of it on Long Island and Huntington, Centerport area. My
Nice.
wife, though, grew up in Spanish Harlem, 126th Street.
Okay.
So, and unfortunately for her and our family, she has lost people from COVID.
It's been a
And,
war.
and it's been unbelievable. My mother is kind of semi-retired or basically retired. She's in South Amboy, New Jersey. So yeah, my people, my family components are there, and we have lost folks, and we are very close to what's going on in the hot spots of COVID, and very concerned about that. That's the number one thing. That's, one thing is about the protests and civil unrest. And then the other part about this is that this uptick of COVID-19 has been quite significant, and it's affected our lives. It really has.
It seems like people who know somebody who's been directly affected or infected, or those who are close to New Yorkers or something, seem to feel it a little bit more, or taking this a little bit more seriously. But it's just about everybody nowadays knows somebody who's been affected. What you've got, your student athletes have kind of slowly been trekking their way back onto campus, and you're getting that back going again. First of all, give us an idea of what they're going through. What's the new process to bringing everybody back in and making sure you're doing it right? And what is the mindset of the student athletes that can you gauge kind of how they're feeling as they're coming back?
Yeah, well, it's a pretty complex process, right? We're going through the COVID testing. We're going through physicals. We're going through, tracing if someone does test positive.
Right.
So yeah, it's a pretty comprehensive process. Our people are really good, working with the DeKalb Health Department, working with obviously the officials within the state, our clinicians, the experts. So there's a layers of layers, because at the end of the day, we still don't know everything about this virus. I'm not a clinician or a doctor, but I have enough information to be dangerous because I'm in the trenches with, testing. Okay, what does this mean? How infectious is it? Who gets it? And who has to also be checked because they were with that individual, and tracing those particular. So there's a point where it's clear that this thing has mutated a couple of times. There's different strands have mutated. There's some people who could have it, asymptomatic and don't even know they have it, and then pass it to the next person. And so there's so much that we don't know about COVID-19. It keeps us even more making sure that all of our procedures that we do have in place are solid, because we may think we're doing it the right way. We might think that this is the way to do it, but we could be doing it wrong because we don't have enough information. We're still getting the information from the professionals, and that's coming down. But we have spent as well as made sure that we've educated ourselves to a point where we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep health and safety job one. And that's not just for the student athletes, for the staff, for the community and everything else. So we've have just 3 teams back now, football, men's and women's basketball. And what we've done now is, continuously, all right, now we got a 4th of July weekend, those kids can't go away. The ones that have to go away, they have to come back, they have to retest it, go back to a quarantine scenario. So every action is an equal reaction to make sure we're keeping people safe. And it's very deliberate and very intentional. And it is frustrating because, the testing process that we have, swabbing up by the nasal cavity and all the things that are necessary to get the right response back. So we can definitively say that that individual does not have COVID. That individual does have COVID. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's a very labor intensive a process right now to make sure everybody is safe.
Now, are you guys not releasing whether you have any positive cases or not?
Correct. We are not. That's based on the rules that we have relative to confidentiality to really keep safe the victims as well as the individuals in our program. So I will not be releasing any.
Now, we have heard of some programs who are finding some different cases right now. Give us an idea of, I don't want to work in hypotheticals, but maybe you have a plan in place for if you do get a positive case within one of those three teams.
Yeah, so they're pretty standard throughout everyone's process where there's a quarantine, minimum of 14-day quarantine.
Okay.
And then we have a location by which they would quarantine, and then we have a process to make sure that that individual is being taken care of, food, medical, what have you. So it is a pretty labor process where to make sure that individual is taken care of, and then there's no reinfection and no affecting someone else. So yeah, there is, and we all have that on a lot of our college campuses right now. But yeah, the tracing of the individual. So the individual got infected, then okay, who did that individual interact? Was there a roommate situation? Was there an interaction? When's the last time that person interacted with X, Y, and Z? So
that's very important in your, in that kind of.
Very much so. So there's a significant process in place to do that and to educate, so we can then get to the number one deal. Did you get this because you were out protesting? Did you get this because you went to the supermarket? Did you get this because mom and dad were you out of the country? There's all this types of stuff that are put in the blender so we can get to the core of the matter.
Okay. Let's talk about the near future here. And I know it's so fluid right now, and there's so much that we still, as you've mentioned, we still don't know. But give me an idea of what plans are in place for the fall and to get athletics going. And then is there also, again, I've used this term already, plan Bs in place for, because as you mentioned, there's been resurgences already in other parts of the country. We have to prepare. What are we looking at for the fall sports?
Well, we still have a fair amount of uncertainty. Unfortunately, the party line right now is that I really don't know. I do know that we are planning to play football in our fall sports in the fall right now as we speak. Right. And it's July 2nd, right? So July 2nd, we are planning to play. Having said that, we are meeting daily on the different scenarios that it might look like. If we do not get the all good and we can ensure that we won't have mass infections and cannot prevent any issues relative to COVID-19, we will not have a fall. I'm quite sure the leaders above me and the leaders that will be making those final decisions as we work together, we need to have a definitive environment that we can provide health and safety. And that's not just for the student athletes, that's for the staff, that's for the fan base, that's for those who are interaction in our group settings. We do know that we'll never go to stage 5 for Illinois because for the fall, because that means we would have a vaccine at that point. So we do know that a vaccine will not occur in a month and a half from now. We know that. So therefore that we're in this constant checking. We're in constant making sure that we have the protocols. We have several scenarios in place where, okay, say if it's a postponement of the fall sports, what does that look like? What is the modeling behind that? So we have all those particular models happening.
Possibly no fans.
Well, that's another one. We're reduced amount of fans, maybe 10%, 5%, 20% reduction in the stadium. Those all of the scenarios that we're working on right now. So even if we were lucky enough to have competition, it won't look like anything that we've seen in the past relative to a fan-friendly environment. So I'm trying to manage those expectations right now. So these types of meetings are good so the fan base understands. When you come to Husky Stadium, when you come to Convocation Center, when you come to any of our venues, and we are lucky enough to carry on with competition, it won't look like anything that we have had in the past, because there will be a reduction in social distancing that we must maintain to keep health and safety.
My, how your job has changed over the past few months, hasn't it? You just you have to adapt. I have to ask you about, I mean, when you're talking about student athletes coming in, these guys are 19, 20, 21-year-old, healthy young men and women. But that's not everybody that's involved in these teams and in these athletic departments. You have coaches, you have different staff members. I'm assuming some of which fall into the age group, which is definitely in the more threatened zone, and then even in the health categories that might worry some people. Are you dealing with anybody that is worried about coming back to work right now?
Well, I'm in that category, Jay.
Yeah.
Let's just call it out there.
Knocking on the door.
I'm sitting right in that category. I'm high risk right now as you look at me. You know what I'm saying? And my wife reminds me of that. And she's got some respiratory issues. So bringing home COVID is not high on the agenda on any level. So yeah, we do have coaches, we do have staff that do fall into that category, the high risk situation. And that's why I keep on prefacing the fact that I want to protect my student athletes, but I also need to protect the staff that are protecting the student athletes. So yeah, we have to pay attention to that, because I think that
and
a
it's
lot
a
of folks,
case by case kind of thing.
or it is, but the way you mitigate that is that you stick to the protocols that you say that you are going to do, and not make changes, being consistent with that, just because the fact that the person may be a staff person or a coach or have access. Well, no, you wear your mask, you practice social distancing, you make sure we sanitize certain facilities, and you need to do that in a very aggressive manner to make sure you keep that. Sure. I think that people for some reason have gotten lax as you're watching the uptick of this, is because people are tired of being cooped up.
Yes.
They're tired of not having the basic necessities of what they perceive is necessary. And I think they've let their guard down. And I think when you leave your guard down, you're seeing now the upticking of cases, and quite frankly, the rollback of allowing that. You've seen that in several states, I believe Texas, Florida, Arizona. There's been some things now that the states have said, oh, you know what, we shouldn't have lifted the ban too early. Now we got to go back to more restrictive behavior. So I applaud the state of Illinois leadership. I do believe that it's been aggressive, maybe a little bit too aggressive sometimes in the way it has been articulated, but I definitely respect it and applaud it, because that hardline attitude has protected us. And I, for one, in the high risk group and taking care of student athletes and coaches, I appreciate that, because I would hate that we would have massive amounts of cases and other types of things because of the fact that we didn't do the basics to keep all people safe.
Yeah. This has been great, and I could pick your brain for hours. Sean Frazier, NIU Athletic Director, I really appreciate your time. I know this has been such a tricky time for you and for everybody around you. Tell us, is there an overriding message that you're giving your employees, your student athletes right now to help keep them positive and get them through this and keep them safe? I mean,
yeah. Well, I don't have a magic inspirational saying, but I will say this. I think that a lot of us, especially at NIU, we work extremely hard to make sure that we educate our young people, our staff, for citizenship to society. We do this on a daily basis. We do it really well. We've got a great system here at NIU. But I think the biggest issue here now is that this is not the norm, right? There's nothing normal about what we're doing. This is uncharted water, so to speak. And it's going to take a little extra creativity to keep people safe. And the only way we can do that is lead from the chair that we are at. And when I say that is that you don't have to be the AD, you don't have to be the president, you don't have to be the professor or the head coach. Everybody takes a personal responsibility of making sure that health and safety is job one, and we will beat this thing. And this too shall pass, because I think ultimately people are so scared because of all the different issues that we just went through during this podcast, that they get frozen and there's so much fear and anxiety that they can't seem to move. And it's very burdensome, and I get that. But I think if you feel that you can't make an impact, that is incorrect. You can. You can lead from the chair that you sit in, no matter what capacity you're in, by taking personal responsibility of your actions. So I've been saying that to the staff that, yeah, you're right. You might not be around that room making that final decision, or maybe you are in that room making that final decision. But there's one thing I can do, is I can control my actions. I can put a mask on. I can make sure that I'm not in certain environments. I can make sure that I'm not involved in certain environments that are high risk. And if I do that, if I do it and everybody else does that, I think we got this thing on the ropes. And I think that's kind of where we are, because at some point we'll get a vaccine. At some point we will get in front of the curve. And at some point, this too will be just like the other viruses throughout our history. Spanish flu, whooping cough, black plague, all these different things, right? We're still here. Humans are still on the planet. And we've had some whoppers of diseases that have almost wiped out Ebola. I can go through all and all. There's always some major crisis around a disease that, that we haven't heard of, but somehow we've been able to defeat it. And I think that it comes down to that.
Work together, care about others, respect others. I mean, that's kind of a groundwork for a lot of this stuff we're dealing with in our world, isn't it?
Right. That's what it is. It's just paying attention, some good old-fashioned common sense, as my grandmother used to say down in Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Yes.
Maybe use common sense.
Yeah.
I didn't understand what she was talking about. She says, you know what? Just use common sense.
Oh, my
I
goodness.
know you're getting educated down there in Tuscaloosa, but let me help you with this. Use common sense.
Yeah, it doesn't take a lot. Well put, Sean Frazier. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. This has been fun as heck. And intense. The stuff we're talking about is just intense. So thank you for sitting down with us. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem, Jay. Anytime. It's good to keep on doing what you're doing, getting the message out. I think people need to hear more of these types of conversations because sometimes they feel alone, like we just talked about. So good. I wish you safety with you and your family, and anything that we can do at NIU for you, please just let us know.
Thank you, sir. You too. And thanks again.